record, exactly which user we want to delete. So we need to pass in the ID into this route. So again, the pattern dictates that we're dealing with request and response objects here. So cool. So again, the pattern is we kind of create a wrapper, which is our route. And then inside that route, that's where we do our Mongoose query logic. So the first thing we want to do is actually grab the user, the specific user that we want to delete. So for this one, we'll do a user, and Mongoose has a really handy method. Mongoose is really good about this stuff. It has a find by ID, find by ID and remove. So how handy is that? Like, just in the context of one Mongoose method, we can get all of this done, kind of one-stop shopping, if you will. So for this one, just like our two other ID routes, we're going to do request params and then grab the ID. So I'm having some spelling issues today. So we're going to grab the ID for the specific user we want to delete from our params object on our request object. So this is going to take a callback function. Again, just like we've done previously, this function is going to take the error object, the error as an argument that we can console log errors, and then also the actual user, the instance that we're trying to delete or remove. So here I'm going to, if you look in the README code, for this one I actually did put in like the error stuff. So I'll just put that in to be consistent with what's in the lesson. So let me console log the error. And then right here below it, I want to console log this both in my node server logs and also client side with the res.send or some sort of message. Now obviously we're deleting this user, so it's not like I can send the user once I've deleted it to the client or to Postman. So we'll put in a string that says like user deleted just to give us a heads up. So for the console log, we're going to pass in a string user deleted because that user no longer exists, obviously. And then we'll do a res.send. We'll do the same thing here. So just a string, just to be polite. Cool. Clean that up a little bit. And yeah, that looks pretty good. So that's the route. That's the code for the actual route. Now we're going to test it out in Postman. So let's do that now. Let me put those instructions into Slack so you guys will have them here shortly. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to go into Postman. So let me figure out which user I want to delete. So let me do a quick get request just to get a list of all my users. Let's delete this first one. Let's delete Greg. So remember before lunch, we updated this document. It was Jerry, and now it's Greg. But I want to delete this person. So I'm going to grab the ID. And obviously, once you guys create forums, you'll probably want to create some links in your reviews that'll make this, a little easier. But since we're doing this manually and we're testing it out, we need to actually copy and paste the object ID for the user that we want to delete. So I'll put that into my URL and then make sure that you're actually submitting a delete request. So I'm going to go to /users. This is the ID of the user. I want to 86 out of my database. And let's send that away. Cool. So I get a message. It's pretty simple. It just says user deleted. So at least it gives me some feedback. Eric had mentioned earlier. So if we did have views, if we were putting all of the functionality into this application, obviously we'd want to redirect to some other view because delete doesn't have a view associated with it. But for this testing purposes, we don't have any views, so we're fine with just sending this little message. And if I go to my console, I can also see that here, just to kind of a little redundancy. So it's deleted here. I also see it here in Postman. And so now if I refresh my users in the browser, so if I refresh this, jerry@gmail.com should not be in my array any longer. So let me refresh. And he no longer exists in my array. So I just kicked him out of my database. So that's how we create a delete route for using Mongoose for our Express application. So let's do a timeout right there, give you guys a chance to implement that into your app, and we will move forward. So you do, and I would encourage you guys to not copy and paste the code. Try to type it out longhand just to get the practice. But go ahead and add the route to your users.js file, and then try to delete a user using Postman just to make sure that it works. And then we'll have 2 more routes to go. So we're almost through the lesson. Pretty sweet. And then give me a thumbs up in Slack when you do get that working successfully. Now I'll stop my screen share. Yeah, Adam has a really good question in Slack, which Christine was very helpful with. Yeah, so we don't need to use method override because we're not actually using a physical form within a view. So once you do include a form, you'll need to use that method override to update and delete via form. It's a very good question. We still need body parser though, because we're still dealing with data that we're sending from Postman to the server. But method override is just for the form itself. All right. Take another minute or two. I see 6 thumbs up in Slack and a couple of gun show emoticons. So yeah, let's take another minute or two, then we'll move forward with our last two routes. And hopefully you guys can kind of appreciate the value of a tool like Postman, because there's a lot of moving parts already, like setting up Node and Express, then setting up Mongoose and Mongo, and then trying to put views and forms on top of that just to like make sure that all those pieces are working in sync. There's just a lot of moving parts, and hopefully you guys can appreciate a tool like Postman that lets you, let's just test the server side stuff. Make sure that like we're even returning res sending the data correctly before we add views on top of it. So we can have, again, we can be pretty confident that once this is working, we just put some views on top of it and we're gonna be in really good shape. So, we're probably like 80–85% to having a fully, full stack application. Once we finish this, we'll put some views on it and then we'll be in really good shape. So I see 9 thumbs ups. We'll take like another minute and then I'm going to move forward. So the next two routes we want to do, we want to look at how to embed a new item inside a user, and then also how to remove an item from a user. We're just going to walk through those two routes. If you want to, update an item within a user, those types of things, you guys can investigate that on your own. But I just wanted to walk through at least two routes on how to embed some model into another model. Cool. All right, so I'm going to move forward. Again, I'm happy to help anyone out at the next kind of break time. So just hang tight. Let me walk through this code and then give you guys an opportunity to add it to your application. So the next route we're going to create is how to embed an item inside a user's document. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to build out the route, and we'll walk through it. So now it's getting like a little more tricky. A couple more variables here. But the pattern is going to start out the same. We're going to have router, and we're going to do a .post because we're creating a new instance of an item. It just happens that we're embedding it, inside a user document, but we're still creating something, so we want to do it with the post request. Now, the path that we want to use, the first part of the path is we want to grab the ID. This is the ID of the user that we're going to add new items to their document. So this ID refers to the user. Need to put a / there. And then after that, it's going to be similar to if we create a new, / users or something. We're going to go to / items, which tells our Express and Mongoose and Mongo database that we're going to add a new item to the specific user with this ID. So this is what our path, our URL is going to look like. Then after that, we want to pass in our callback, which again, will take request and response, and we'll open that up. And again, we created kind of that outer router wrapper, if you will. And so now inside, we're going to put our Mongoose query logic. So for this one, the first thing we need to do is actually find the user that we want to add a new item to. So for that one, let's do a find by ID on user. And then similar to what we've done in 3 other routes so far, we'll grab the ID for that user from our request params object. And so that's going to be from right here. So we're going to grab this ID from the params, and we're going to find a user that has that ID. So this is going to take a callback function, and this will take the error argument and the user argument. So the user is going to be the actual user that Mongoose just found in the database, the specific one user we want to add items to. And so inside here, since we have that user, we're passing in user as an argument. This is similar to what we did earlier in the week, I think on Tuesday. Now we can do a user.push, sorry, user items.push. So remember that items is just an array of items. So it has all of those array methods available to it. So we'll do a user.items.push. And for this one, we're going to use the items constructor. And we're pulling that in here at the top. If you scroll up to the very top of the file, remember that we're pulling in the model for item. So we can create new instances of item, just like it's a constructor function. We can do new item. So we're going to do new item, needs to be singular. And then for this one, we're going to pass in the form fields, the mimicked form fields from Postman. So an item only has one field that we defined in our schema, and that's name. And the name for this one is going to be request body .name. So for this one, when we go into Postman, we're only going to create a name key and then that value. And the way that we have this code set up, it should persist correctly in our database. So that's it for grabbing the information. And then once we grab that, we need to save the user. And this will take an error object, an error argument also if we want to use it. And then let's send this user. And now when we res send the user, we should see that items array with an extra item attached to it. So let me make sure that this looks pretty good. Again, I'm just typing in the code that I put into the lesson for reference. So just let me make sure that this looks tight. Looks pretty good. Okay, so let's test this out. So the route looks good. Let's go into Postman and make sure this is working correctly. Let me put these instructions into Slack so you guys can do this shortly. Okay, so first let me do a GET request. Let me just grab the specific user that I want to add an item to. So real quick, I'll do a GET to my users just to grab all the users. Let me pick one. I'll add it to Mark actually. So the first thing I want to do to create that route or to hit that route successfully, I'm going to go to /users / the ID of the individual user that I want to add this new item to. And I can test that out. I can do another GET request here just to make sure that I'm hitting that correctly. So that does indeed return the details for that one user. So far so good. Now, the other part of this path is exactly what we put in here into the actual route. The path needs to be after the ID of the user. I need to do /items to make sure I'm hitting the right path. So I'll go ahead and put items in here. And remember that since we're going to be sending data, that this should be a post request because we're trying to create a new item. Once I do that, let me actually go, so we're going to, again, click the body tab so we make sure that our data is formatted correctly when it gets sent to the server. So click on body, and then make sure that we select this x form URL encoded. So again, this works in tandem with body parser. It's going to send it in a very nice JSON format that's very easy for Mongo to read and understand and dump it to the database. So just make sure that you have these, selected appropriately. Again, I'm using the same tab that I did earlier, so I can just get rid of these fields to start from scratch. Cool. So again, the key that I'm going to send the name of this item. I don't know, items are pretty general. I'm looking at some crayons from the adult coloring books that someone's trying to get me hooked on. So I'll just put in crayons. Does anyone do those adult coloring books? They're pretty crazy. I like mine with stickers. Anywho, All right, so this is going to be my new item, a name of crayons. And I think we're good. So I'm going to hit send, and let's see if this thing works. So I'll hit send. And indeed, so I did a res.send. I asked Mongoose to send me back the updated user. And so if I scroll down here, you can see it in Postman. So now my items array from Mark has a new item in the array. Here's the ID, so no, it's persisted in the database, and it has a name of crayons. So cool, so I know that route works. Again, now that this works, that's the hard part. Now you guys will just need to create a form that will, do this inside of View, actually in the browser. But it looks like that route's working, so.
In that array, why did the ID appear before the name on the second item in the array, or the second name in the array?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe in the seed data, maybe I put this backwards. I really don't know. I can try to create a new one and see. What else am I seeing? I'll put books. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe just because of the way the seed data, because this was in the seeds.js. I mean, maybe that's just the way that Mongoose wrote it to the database. I'm not sure. Let me look here in the browser. If I refresh. Yeah, it looks like it did it that way too. Yeah, I don't know. I could check the documentation or something. Maybe there's some rhyme or reason to that, but I'm not sure what it is. Well, the route works, which is awesome. So let's take a few minutes and have you guys implement that into your route, into your users.js controllers file. So you do add your route and then test it out in Postman. Yeah, Jesse, stickers are absolutely cheating for sure. I mentioned to my stepdad some adult coloring books, and he started giving me crap. Like, are you using the ones with stickers or?
Give me a break, Dad. I just advanced past connected dots.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like those smart-ass coloring books that like the color by numbers. Like, I don't need a coloring book telling me what color to put where. Like, I don't appreciate it. I do not appreciate it.
It's like Adam Sandler. What was it in Billy Madison when he's like, I drew a blue duck because I've never seen a blue duck. So I wanted to see what a blue duck would look like.
Yeah. Penguin. That's funny. All right, guys, we are super, super close. So we have one more route, and then we're going to, if we have a few minutes, we're going to do a quick and dirty adding a view that you guys can then like go forward and add more views to. But I want to give us to maybe like 3:30, if not sooner, and we'll move forward. So be sure to give me a thumbs up in Slack once you get that working. Aaron asks, is this an example of nested callbacks that can be replaced using promises? Yeah, absolutely. It's actually pretty simple to convert this into promises. I just didn't because I already had kind of written most of this lesson. But yeah, I'll just show you like really quick and dirty. Let me share my screen while you guys are working. I can kind of show you what this would look like with promises. Again, like Matt mentioned, just want to reemphasize, you don't have to know promises backwards and forwards. It's just on a very, very high level, it just makes your code a lot more manageable and cleaner. Now, what we're doing is relatively on the simpler side. You know, we don't have much too bad of a like callback hell situation going on. However, if I did want to, you know, maybe refactor this into promises, it would look something like so. So maybe I could close that off. And down here, let me do a .then, and I could open this up. So again, the beautiful thing about promises, it just makes your code a little cleaner and chainable, kind of like jQuery methods that we can chain together. So after that, I'm going to add a promise for the request and the response. And then probably right here, we'll see if this works. Maybe I'm missing a step, but then I could open one up here. Pretty much anytime I see one of these callback functions, I'm going to try to evaluate it and see, like, how could I kind of refactor this into a promise? So that closes there, and that closes there. Okay, so I think this looks pretty good. You need to make sure that if you have any kind of like semicolons at the end of these, if you're going to chain them together with promises, you need to make sure that you don't have those, because technically, this is how it reads, this is how it's parsed. But just for readability, I think I didn't see all of what Matt showed you guys this morning, but you may want to put it on separate lines just so you can see where the promises start and stop. Let me clean this up. Okay, cool. So let me try one more time. Let's see if this is working. Yeah.
Mark, could you put that save into another .then?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we could probably do that. Yeah, let's try that. So I think maybe we need to check this out just to make sure I'm doing this correctly.
No, don't nest the .thens. Return user.save.
Inside here.
No. Return user.save from that first callback. All right. Because
So let me get back to. Okay, so where would I put that, Matt? You're a little tighter on this than I am with promises.
No worries. So in line 62,
Yeah.
make that user.save, return user.save with no argument.
Okay.
Because what will happen is that the next then in the promise chain will wait for user.save to finish. We'll wait for the user.save promise.
So something like that?
You need parens because you got to invoke it.
Yeah. Okay.
That next line needs to go. But yeah, anything after that, if you add a then to the bottom of the chain, like line 64, you have to delete the semicolon in 63, but
Yeah.
no, not in there. Before the closing curly. Yeah.
Oh, right here.
Before that last closing curly for the. Oh, whoa! Wait. Oh, hold on a second. I didn't notice that you had already nested some stuff. Can I actually get control of the screen briefly, Mark?
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah, let's take like maybe a minute or two, then move forward.
Cool.
We're doing it live, you guys.
User.findById. Technically, you can call that and that will return a function. Return a promise rather. But I find that to be confusing. So I just say .exec, and that'll just return the promise right away. And then you can do this. Because what'll happen in this case, right? You should never have your promises be nested inside each other. That is a key warning sign that something has gone wrong. So here's how you can avoid it. In this case, if you're returning the promise right away from .exec, then you know that when you add a then after it, it's going to get the user or whatever it is that you asked for. And any other things that you want to do, you can just keep adding to this promise chain like that.
It's awesome.
Easy to read, right?
It's so much easier, yeah. And this is only, we're only using 2 promises here, but if this was like a more robust, application, these just save you so much grief rather than callback hell for sure. Yes, you mind if I drive again, Matt?
Oh, yes, sorry, please.
Cool.
Go ahead.
All right, yeah, let's test this out, and then I'll pop it into Slack. Let's just make sure this works.
Wait, hang on. Oh, wait, Mark, before you do, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Sure.
The post, is that, you need a callback function for the post, I believe. That's not going to return a promise, is it?
Well, so this first part, we want to grab the user that we want to actually.
No, I'm saying .post. The .post method isn't going to return a promise, I don't think. Is
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I tried promises earlier with like my index route, like these little bit more concise routes, and it worked fine. We can try it and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's try
I'm
it.
not sure that it will work, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah. That was actually kind of more of a stretch, like refactoring this into promises. So let me, Yeah, let's try to do it. Let me just try to add another one. So instead of books, I don't know, I see a water bottle.
Well, you're gonna need your stickers for your coloring book, right?
That's true. That's true. So let's send that away. Okay, can I get any response? What error am I getting? Router.post then is not a function. Yes, I would have to.
So for the first one, for the post needs a callback, but everything inside that callback can be promisified.
Cool.
So in that case, in fact, you could even just say, you don't even need to return anything. Just say user.findById.
Right, and then pass the user.
On that.
Yeah. And this would be user, right?
Yeah, just copy 62 to 65, because that's.
Oops.
Actually, it's going to need to go inside the callback.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So user.findById.then. Yeah.
Okay. Let's try this, and then I'll move forward. But yeah, I mean, just right off the bat, this looks a lot cleaner, which is awesome. So I'm not getting errors, which is good. Yep.
One more thing, Mark. So I want to just be clear about one specific thing, which is user.findById. That thing is not actually returning a promise. So the .then that's being called there is a different .then than the standard promise .then. It's confusing as hell, and it's Mongoose's attempt to be smart, but it's actually dumb. I'm a little leery about that stuff when it comes up. If it were me writing this, I would put a .exec on line 58 before the .then, just to ensure that we were dealing with a standard JavaScript promise and not some funkiness that Mongoose might have come up with.
Something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Let me run this, and then we'll move forward. This is really good stuff, though. So let me. I'll try this again. Looks like the server's running okay. No more errors. Let me try to submit water bottle one more time. And now it's kind of frozen. So I think one of my promises is not.
I think you need a catch.
Okay. You know what? Let's put a pin in that. Let's move forward. Comment that out just in the interest of time. If we have time at the end, let's come back and revisit that. Let me slap in, where were we up here? Just so we have that working code, I'm going to paste in what I had. And then, yeah, let's come back to that in a minute. Okay, cool. So that is our add a new item. Are there any other questions? All right, cool. So let's look at this last route. And then if we have a few minutes, I want to show you guys, like, just get one index view working, just kind of dip a toe in the view waters. And then I'm going to hand it off to Matt for some more coverage at 3:30 at the latest. So let's finish up our last route. The last thing I wanted to do is let's take a look at how to remove an item from a user. So again, this is a little tricky, but we're going to get through it. I'm going to start the code here. So again, for this one, I'm going to attach all of the stuff to our router object. And this is going to be a delete because we're going to try to delete an item from a specific user. And the path for this, oof, my voice just went up there. The path for this one is a little different. Let me type in this path and then see if you guys can give me some thoughts on why we're doing it this way. Should be items. So if you want to put it into Slack or if you want to come on mic, take a look at this route that we're actually creating, the path. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing like a user ID and this other ID param in here? Why are we setting these up?
What comes after those colons, it doesn't matter what you call it, but since you have a unique user ID and a unique ID on the actual item you want to delete, you just want to make sure they're different.
Yeah, that's excellent. So the way that this route's set up, we need to grab the ID for the user, and then we need to grab the ID of the individual item that we want to remove. So in our params object, we're going to have two IDs, and we're not going to know which is which. So when I set up this route, I'm going to set up a user ID here. So that'll be sent with the params. And I know that that's the user object ID. And then the other, just regular underscore ID, is going to be my item ID. Yeah, so for this one, I just want to be very specific. So I'm going to call this user ID. Yeah, very nice. So let's put our Mongoose logic in here. So I'm going to do a user find by ID and update. And again, I think we've used this in maybe like 4 of the requests so far, like the request.params. But this time, instead of ID, this is going to be user ID, because I'm trying to grab the user here. Cool. And then I'm going to add this other kind of Mongo-y. This is actually a Mongo method. It's pull. So this is similar to like, a splice or a slice that you can do on an array. So this $pull, I'm going to pull the specific item from that item's array. So this is how I'm going to remove it. So in this pull, I'm going to pass in an object, kind of some parameters here. And the specific item that I'm going to pull, I want the ID to equal the request params, just the normal .id. Because in my path, this ID refers to the item, and user ID refers to the user. So this is going to be request.params ID. So I'm telling Mongoose to grab the user, and then I'm going to pull the specific item from that item's array on the user. And actually I need to add a little bit more code here. So I'm actually passing that in as kind of an object. So I'm pulling from the items array the item that has an ID that matches what I put into my route, into my URL. Cool, so that should do that. And then let's tidy this up. So right here, let me put in my callback function. Once I have Mongoose do its magic. So I'm going to pass in error. And this time, instead of passing in user, let me pass in the item that I am trying to remove. I want to check the item out instead of the user. So for this one, I'm going to put in some error syntax, just because this is a little bit more of a robust query here. So if there is no error, and if there isn't an error, I know that because of the kind of the bang, the exclamation point, then just send me the item that I just deleted. Let me make sure that this is closed off appropriately. So this could probably benefit from a nice little promisey cleanup for sure. Cool, that looks good. So now let's test it out in Postman. Let me put those instructions in here. Cool, so I'll go into Postman. Let me do a get request. Just let me make sure what I'm dealing with here. Okay, so I'm still dealing with Mark. Let's get rid of the crayons. I don't need crayons because I'm using stickers anyway. So I'm going to grab the ID of the specific item that I want to delete, and then I'm going to add that to my path up here. So remember what we coded was /items, and then the ID of that item that I want to remove from Mark the user. So I add that to my URL. Again, I'm doing a post, so I need to change this to a post request, so it'll be sure to match up with my route. So I'm doing a post request. This looks good. Let's fire it off. Let's see what happens. So we want to get rid of crayons there. Cannot post users. Okay. Let me do a get. Let's see what happened there. Let me just load up that user one more time. And crayons is still there. So what am I missing? Let me check my code real quick. So delete user ID, items ID. Shouldn't it be a delete request? Oh, yeah, thanks, Rachel. Such a dum-dum. Yeah, we're not creating an item, we're deleting it. My bad. So let me put that back in there. Thanks for catching that. I got stickers on the brain. So yeah, this should be a delete. You're absolutely right. So let's send that away. And cool. So it's going to send back the object, and then we have this little item deleted next to the array. It's not really right next to the actual item that was deleted, but at least there's a message confirming that an item was deleted from my items array. So then if I go back to load up Mark, I'll change this to a get, and I'm going to get the user with the ID of this ID, which is me. If I send that away, so indeed the crayons item has been removed. So yeah, so that has a few extra little bells and whistles, but yeah, that route is working successfully. So let's take 5 minutes or so and let you guys add that to your app. And then we have about 15 minutes left. So let's do this. Go ahead and add that, get the deleting an item, removing an item to your code. And then I want to put this challenge to you. And we'll do this in the next like 14 minutes because I want to hand over the mic at 3:30. But once you finish that, take a few other minutes and see if you can get an index view to work. So we already have the route for an index that'll send all of our users. Just see, it doesn't have to be pretty. You don't even have to create a layout.hbs. Just like in the quickest, dirtiest way possible, see if you can get some users rendering using a view in the browser. Again, it doesn't have to be pretty. It's just going to look like that goofy array of objects. But just see if you can quickly throw handlebars into your application, quickly spin up a view, and just try to get handlebars to render all of your users. Don't worry about doing like, an each or a for loop or anything. Just see if you can get that. Just see if you can actually get something like this to render, but using a view rather than using JSON data, using this res.send. My Postman is just sitting on loading. Double check your syntax. Yeah, I think Rachel and Sanaz had this issue right before lunch. Also, just like shut down Postman and reopen it. That helps for those guys. Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Yeah, maybe Rachel, maybe Postman's being a little difficult right now. So yeah, get that route working, and then see if you can quickly spin up a view, just as a challenge. Then I'll actually kind of show you guys how to do it really quickly before 3:30. I'll stop my screen share for now. Yes, so JJ, I will paste in my code, and I would ask that you type this out. Please don't copy and paste it. But yeah, so there's my remove an item code. And then I'll push up my entire code base up to your GitHub. It'll be in the instructors examples folder, so you'll have that available to you. And then also this lesson has all of the code that I've typed out. So if you need that for reference, it'll be there for you. So those of you that got the remove an item code working correctly, I just put in, like, for lab time this afternoon, we may have another activity for you guys, but one of the first steps was going to be to try to add views to your application. So I just put in some really quick 5 steps there, just as I thought about how would I add views to the app. So again, let's take another few minutes if you want to try to add views to your app. It doesn't have to be sexy, it doesn't have to be perfect, but take a look at those 5 steps and think about how you could add handlebars to your application, then create a view, and then try to get, you know, some user data to render within that view. So take a few minutes and take a look at those steps, and then I'll show you what I did to get that working. I did it like right before we regrouped after lunch, and that'll just kind of give you a head start as far as creating the rest of the views and the forms and stuff. So.
Mark, can I ask you something real quick?
Yeah, what's up?
When using the Postman,
Mhm.
adding a new item or removing an item,
Mm-hmm.
What are we supposed to put up into the HTTP localhost section of the Postman to specify an item? Do we put the users and then the user ID and then the item and then the item ID? Or I've tried different variations.
To create an item?
Yeah, either to create an item or remove an item, just to access item, I guess.
So
removing or creating.
So to create an item, here, I'll put it into Slack.
There's
So,
only two I was hung up on.
yeah. So, so check out Slack. I'll paste this in there.
Right.
So to create an item, the path is localhost 4000 users and the ID of the specific user that you want to add a new item to.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's /items. And you need to pair this with a post request in Postman because we're trying to create a new item. So we're going to use a post request. If you want to remove an item, it would be something like you also need the ID of the item that you want to remove. So let me put this into Slack.
Then, of course, instead of the post, we would use the delete.
Yeah.
But it's the actual, what you're posting is what I'm getting hung up on.
So the ID that I put into Slack, remember that's like one of my object IDs in my database. Your IDs are going to be completely different. But to remove an item, I just put into Slack. It would be localhost 4000 /users. And the first thing you need to do is grab the user that you want to delete an item from, right? Because items live on that user document. So users / the ID of that user, then /items, then / the ID of the item that you want to remove. So that second object ID is the crazy ID for the item that you want to remove. And you pair that one, let me edit that post. You want to edit that one with the delete.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so let me know if that's not working for you, Brad. Okay, it's so it's 3:30. I want to hand the mic off to Maddie B. But let me quickly, I'm going to share my screen. Just let me quickly run through how to get like a very simple view up and running. I don't want to like show you the whole thing because I want you guys to struggle with this on your own. But I will show you like the quick and dirty way just to test out that views are working. So let me share my screen. And I put those steps into Slack. They're not super specific. I just wanted to kind of give you some guideposts. So the first thing says we need to npm install -- save HBS. So the first thing we need to do is actually, install the handlebars module. So I ran that earlier. So like from the command line, you'd want to run, an npm install -- save HBS. I'll go ahead and do that again. It's kind of overkill, but so that's the first step. And then I can go into my package.json just to confirm that it has been installed. So that's cool. So the first thing we need to do is bring in handlebars. The next thing you need to do is set the view engine to HBS. So remember that we need to actually tell Express what engine to process the data and the HTML with. So we're going to do that in app.js. Yes, you guys should be savvy enough to figure this out, but you'd also need to require HBS. So I didn't put that step in there, but you guys can figure that out. So you need to require HBS, and then right here, I'm going to do an app.set and set my view engine to handlebars. So it tells Express to process all of my, compile all of my views, assume that there's handlebars code within all of my views, and turn that into HTML before you send it back to the client. So that's step 2. Step 3, so again, quick and dirty example, I didn't create a layout.hbs. I would encourage you guys to do that. But just to get something rendering, I created a views folder in my parent directory. Within that, I created a users folder because I'm going to create views for my users. And the first one that I created is index.hbs. So remember that index.hbs is going to correspond to my index route. So that's the third thing I did. Then I went into that view. So this is my index.hbs. It's super simple. I just want to make sure that this thing's wired up correctly. I put all the users up here, and then I'm going to use handlebars. I'm going to pull in my users via a variable called users. So that's what I'm going to do to render it, to stick it into the template. I'm not going to do an each right now or make it look pretty. I just want that garbage, rendered to my view. Now the last thing I need to do is I need to update my index route. So now if we go to users.js and you go to your index route, now instead of a res.send, we want to do a res.render. So when I hit this route, I want to render the index view in my users folder. Now remember, Express already knows to look in the views folder. All you need to do is tell it to look in the users folder and grab the index view for users specifically. And then we do a comma, and then the next argument is actually the data that we want handlebars to compile into the view. So I'm already pulling users, right? We already tested that out because we're console logging it. And also earlier we were res.sending it to our browser. So I know that I'm getting those users successfully. So the rest is just like plugging it into handlebars. So here, instead of using I could have put data right there if I wanted, but I'm just going to use users. So I'm creating an object with a user's key, and the value is going to be that crazy array of users that that Mongoose is grabbing from the database. So when I bake all of that junk together, now when I go back to localhost 4000/users, now instead of sending that JSON data, it's now rendering a view. Again, this is like really simple and quick and dirty, but just have this H1, and then I'm literally just passing in all of that data directly into the view. But it is rendering, so it is working. So all of that heavy lifting we did throughout the day to make sure our routes are working. So now that we've done all that heavy, hard stuff, now we can just put some views on top of it and we'll be in good shape. So our index view is working. I would just want to go in here and maybe do a loop over it. So I'm doing like first name or however you want to display your data. But that is how we could wire up your view engine in a very quick, a few minutes, just to get the thing up and running. So let me stop my screen share for a moment. And yeah, so I know we covered a lot today. Just before I pass it over to Maddie B, any questions before we move forward? I want you guys to work on views going forward because we did the bulk of the work already, and now you guys can play around with implementing the views and the forms.
Still that age gap is always.
Yeah, someone come on mic. Someone have a question?
Yeah, I saw set view engine, HBS. Did I miss where you did that second thing that we have to do?
What's the second thing that we have to do?
Like you point at the folder, it came in a pair. There's two things we always had to do. There's the view engine and then the thing right below it.
So that's if you want to add static files. That's something extra. You guys can look at other lessons.
Oh, no, I remember that one. But no, this is still, I'll find it in the Pokemon. Sorry, just a second.
Okay, cool. Any other questions before I pass it over to Maddie B for the rest of the afternoon?
Oh, yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So what will happen if we turn off our databases and then start everything again? We will start with the same data that we had, or that data is gone and modified? You
mean if you stop your MongoDB and restart it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the data is still there. That's the beauty of it. So now we're actually persisting to a database. Last week, we were playing around with handlebars and static forms. When we restarted our server, all that stuff disappeared, right? But now you guys are full stacking it all day long. So now that data is locked into your database. You can stop the database, you can shut down your server, turn off your computer, and that data is locked in your database. So now you are persisting data. So you guys are crushing it.
Hey, so I posted those 2 lines. I was wondering why we didn't have that second line.
Let me take a look at that. Let's parking lot that, Adam. I'll take a look and Slack you. Any other questions before we pass it off to Matt? Cool. All right. Great work today, you guys. We've covered a lot of ground this week, so thanks for hanging in there. But you guys have pretty much all the pieces for a full stack application now. Tomorrow we'll talk about authentication. Colin will cover that. And then you guys are going to be officially full stackers, which is pretty impressive. So 6 weeks. And with that, Matt, I will pass it off to you.
Thanks, Mark. Let's actually kick things off with a break. Why don't we go ahead and take, let's see, it's 3:38. Let's take 10. Right, Mark, you guys haven't had a break?
We have not.
No. Yeah, 10 minutes, please. Come back here no sooner than 3:48.